Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for another edition of the Money Pros. I'm Oliver Tutt, certified financial planner practitioner, and I'll be your host for the next half hour as we talk about all the issues related to your money, how to make it, how to keep it, and hopefully how to help it grow. So let me tell you what we have in store for today's show. First off, we're going to be talking about early retirement. The question is early retirement really in the cards? There's an interesting new survey out that talks about how more people are expecting to retire early. We're going to talk about some of the considerations if that is a goal on your financial agenda. We're also joined by none other than our real estate pro, Chad Kritzas from Keller Williams Realty. The summer selling season is behind us, but is winter a good time potentially to sell a house? It's some interesting information Chad's going to share with us, so we're going to be talking about that. And then I'm afraid there's a little bad news. The College Board is out with their annual survey on the cost of a college education, and the news is not good, as one would probably expect. So we're going to talk about the details of the rising cost of college education. So we have that in store. And then finally, in our last segment, we're going to title this one, Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. You're going to find out what happened to a tax court judge in Minnesota, and let's just say that it doesn't pay to mess with the IRS, even if you're a tax court judge. So that's what we've got in store for today's show. But first up, we want to talk about early retirement. A study came across my desk recently done by the investment bank JP Morgan Chase, and they basically were surveying millennials. Now, for those of you that aren't into the whole, Generation X, Generation Y, what are millennials? Millennials are basically the children of baby boomers, okay? So I could be considered potentially an older millennial, and then, adults going all the way down to, say, 30-ish would probably be considered millennials. So JP Morgan did a survey of these folks to get some of their attitudes on money and their attitudes on savings and things like that, and compare them to their parents, who are the baby boomers. And some interesting statistics with respect to money. The average millennial actually started saving for retirement at age 23. So that's essentially right out of college they began saving for retirement, which is much younger than their parents actually began saving for college, for retirement. So that is a encouraging sign. And millennials also feel a lot more comfortable with talking about money, which is not something that the baby boomer generation is typically comfortable with. My parents taught me there are certain things you don't talk about in polite company, religion, politics, and of course money. And I became a financial planner, so I talk about money a lot. But the reality is millennials are a lot more comfortable talking with their parents, with their kids, and with other people about money. But there was another interesting thing that came out of the study, and that was that millennials indicate on average they want to retire 5 to 10 years earlier than their baby boomer parents at age 60. Now that for most definitions would be considered an early retirement. And the question is, although that may be what millennials want to do, and they're indicating that they are beginning saving a lot earlier than their parents did, is that really something that's in the cards? Let me throw up a slide and talk to those millennials about some of the considerations you'll have to keep in mind as you think about retiring early. The first one is the reality of extended life expectancies. When I'm doing financial planning for clients now, and those typical clients are anywhere from 55 to 60 years old, the reality is that we're looking at planning horizons that push their life expectancies out to 85, 90, or 95 years old. If you retire at age 60, you're talking about a retirement span of potentially 40, 35, or 40 years. You're talking about a retirement that's going to last longer than your working years, or at least as long as your working years. And let's not forget, the retirement is nothing more than a fancy name for unemployment. So you better have some serious resources saved up if you want to save, if you want to retire at age 60, because of extended life expectancies. That is going to be a very long retirement. Next thing to consider is delayed Social Security. Millennials aren't going to qualify for Social Security until age 67. Their parents, in many cases, qualify for Social Security at age 66 or maybe even age 65. So Social Security is not going to kick in until age 67. That's 7 years where you are going to be the only one providing for your retirement income. So you better have a plan to do that. And then the final thing we want millennials to consider as they gun for that early retirement is the cost of health insurance. Now, if you leave your job, you're going to lose your employer-sponsored health insurance. You don't qualify for Medicaid right now until you're 65, and there's a good chance if Medicaid laws get changed that age could get moved later and more correspond with Social Security. So you're talking about a time of your life where you're living off your own resources and you're having to pay the significant cost of health insurance. So those are some of the things I want millennials to consider as they gun for that early retirement. All right, up next is Chad Kritzas with Keller Williams Realty to talk about the joys of trying to sell a house in the winter. Maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Money Pros. I'm joined now by our real estate pro, Chad Kritzas with Keller Williams Realty. Chad, this is a very timely topic. Obviously, we're heading out of the summer selling season, and we're heading into the winter selling season. So we're going to talk about selling, what people would typically not consider the ideal time of year. But before we do that, we always like to get a market update from you. So tell us, and with our viewers bearing in mind that this usually gets aired a couple of weeks after we tape it, so there's a little bit of a delay. What's going on now? We're into the fall. Kids are back in school. How are the markets right now?
It's nice to come back again for a second month in a row and have positive reports. So once again, single-family home sales in Rhode Island over this time last year up 10%.
Wow.
Condos up over 5%, almost 6%. Single multifamilies went down a touch, but other than that, the single-family and the condo market both are very strong. And the condo market had been down a little in the previous month, so it's nice to see it rebound at almost 6%.
So we're really seeing continued strength, and I don't remember the numbers exactly from the last time you were on, but those increases year over year sound higher than what you were seeing summer over summer, just a little bit earlier. So this fall season seems like it's potentially even stronger as an uptick than the summer was.
Yeah, I always believe the fall market's fairly strong, and contrary to public belief, a lot of what we're going to be talking about, but even the fall market is always, I find, very strong.
So, I mean, that's a great segue, because that's exactly what we want to talk about. So let's start with the spring-summer market. I think most people, lay people, and I would certainly include myself in this, are under the impression that if you're going to sell your house and you have some control over the timing, the time to do it is in the spring and summer. That's when everybody's, focused on. They think that's the best time. Before we get into the other seasons, why are people generally under that impression that spring and summer are the best times to sell a house? What are the typical reasons?
Typical reasons: your grass is green, your flowers look great, you're freshly mulched. Buyers tend to be running around. You just get out of a snowy winter, so everybody's looking to get out there. Spring is always a strong market, but I think sometimes it's overly considered better than, say, a fall market, where it's always strong. I mean, I always look at August, and the first half of September is very, very weak. I mean, August historically for us is just a slow month.
Does school play a little bit of a role into it too, where if people are families and they're going to be moving and changing school districts, that they want to have that settled before kids start school in September?
Absolutely, and you'll see that as they're finishing up this, school coming into May or June. So you'll see a little flurry of activity there as well, and then they get in for the summer and they're settled by the beginning of school in September or late August now.
So I guess my first question is, if people are under the impression that spring summer is in fact better, does that mean there are fewer houses on the market when you start to get into the fall and winter selling season, or is there just less inventory, and is that a good thing?
Well, you started with the beginning of your last question was people tend to think spring is better. So what happens there is, well, your neighbors think the same thing. So you're thinking about selling your house, and let's just say we're using a date of March 30th. Well, then all of a sudden a whole bunch of for sale signs pop up in the same neighborhood. Now, much of what we're going to talk about is very simple. It's just supply and demand, like a lot of things we talk about often. And when there's more choices, right, just because it's spring doesn't mean there's a flurry of new buyers, right? But there's a flurry of new listings. So if there's more to choose from, the same number of buyers, then supply and demand, it could affect values, market time, or a number of things.
So one of the things you're just taking advantage of is because other people don't think it's a great time to sell, there's just fewer houses in competition with you to sell,
right?
I guess. So one of the things you sent me some research information. I was doing some reading in preparation for this segment. Some things that would seem counterintuitive with respect to the winter selling season, but the data seems to back up. One of them is that houses sell faster during the winter. Can you explain that?
Supply and demand, I'm probably going to say it 5 times during this interview. It's there's just less to buy. So if somebody's being transferred for a job, they still need to move. Whether or not it's December or whether or not it's August, they still need to move at that time. And you see that in local markets where you have big corporations nearby. You know, the first of the year tends to be a big relocation time. So that's going to spur up your November, December purchasing, and they a lot of time, you know, get money from their companies to do so. So to them, it's a great time to buy. But for the sellers, there's less inventory, so it's good for them as well.
So I guess the other statistic, and will probably be the same answer, is that houses sell for higher prices in the winter time period too. Is that the case?
It can. You know, this real estate market is all about pricing. If you overprice it just a little and think, well, I have tons of room to negotiate, a lot of time that will hurt you and it will work against you. You know, I always say price it right and be less negotiable on your offers, but at least we have offers.
But it seemed like in some of the things I was reading was that if a seller was going to list in the winter, they were more inclined to price it right. They weren't trying to, you know, catch somebody sleeping or, you know, get lucky with the price like maybe they would try in the spring and summer season. Right,
but then that's back again, you know, people think that spring and summer is necessarily a better market. I mean, spring is, summer, as I say, can be a little weak. But, you know, there's certain things in a winter market you have to remember. You know, you want your staging done properly. You know, you don't have to worry about as much of the landscaping, right? Because you got to figure your flowers are probably dead this time of year and your mulch doesn't look great.
Right.
But, you know, if you have fireplace, you got to make sure all the lights are on because it's going to be dark next week. You know, by the time this airs, it'll be dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. So you got to make sure, you know, all light bulbs, fireplace, and you get some holiday decorations tend to be an issue, right? If you're putting a house on the market in the middle of December and you're doing the photos, you don't want that house to be on the market in March and still have pictures of
like
your holiday, your Christmas tree.
Interesting.
So you got to make sure that you're changing your marketing as the season changes. So if we have snowy photos and we still happen to be on the market in the spring, we're going to go about and reshoot all of those pictures.
So I was going to ask you this question: Do the holidays present an opportunity, or do things really just shut down between Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Most of the biggest sales I've sold in my career have been during that time frame.
Really?
And I refer to the multi-million-dollar second home market. You know, we sold a house a couple of years ago in Portsmouth for $5 million. They bought it in the dead of winter because they wanted to rip the kitchen out, which was a beautiful kitchen, and they wanted to make all these changes before the spring came or before Memorial Day. So if they had bought that in April or say May, they wouldn't even had the house for the summer. So you see a lot of second home purchases specifically that time of year. You know, a first-time home buyer, let's say with no children, is going to be less dependent on school systems or timing of schools. So there's still a lot of buyers running around out there.
Okay. Here's a good question for you: do you think? Now, I think you'd tell me real estate agents are always motivated, or at least the good ones are. But are they more motivated in the winter, or at least do they have fewer distractions than during the spring and summer? Are you going to get more out of your agent?
Let's hope your agent's always motivated.
Sure.
But I mean, if it's slower, let's say, of course they're going to be working harder to make that deal for you, right? If they're not handling 20 deals that week or that month, they'll have more time to work on each one specifically. But I mean, I would hope that your agent is always looking out at your best interest and working hard.
But it does speak to, if you have 2 or 3 times as many listings in the spring and summer as you do in the winter, it just might mean the agent has more opportunity to do more open houses or think more about advertising or, you know, whatever else that they just might simply not have time for if they're dealing with that many more clients in the spring.
Very possible.
So let me ask about the types of buyers, because you know, I imagine that whole environment that you described in the spring and summer where, you know, you've been through a long cold winter, you want to get outside. I'm envisioning you have a lot of, you know, I don't know what you'd call them, tire kickers, people that just, you know, hey, I want to go check out that house or whatever, but maybe they're not all that motivated. Is it different in the winter? Are the buyers more serious potentially?
I definitely would believe so. I mean, I think if your buyers are out in the cold weather, they're very serious about looking at it. And that's, we say that. I mean, you have very motivated buyers running around, you know, in those months. Just, I mean, there's, you know, less people, like you said, right? They're not just looking for something to do on a Sunday afternoon. If it's cold out, they're not going to just go pop in open houses. So you have motivated buyers usually this time of year going into the winter. Now, we'll be dependent upon the weather at some level, right? Now, a couple of years ago, we had a brutal February, right? It was awful. We had 2 blizzards. Real estate kind of shut down. However, this past year, we really had no harsh winter. So we continued all year straight through. And honestly, looking back, I don't really think we saw a slowdown.
And that's really the last question I wanted to ask you is about the weather. What kind of impact does the weather have? I mean, can snow be helpful? I mean, I guess if it was a ski place or something like that, you know, that's certainly going to be a benefit. But does lousy weather always ruin things, or does it present any opportunities? Is there a way to, optimize your chances even if the weather's lousy? What do you do?
Well, back to the same staging issues. Also, an issue that sounds silly. Sellers need to make sure their walkways are shoveled, their driveways shoveled. I mean, there's nothing worse than showing up for a showing after a snowstorm, and you show up and maybe it's a second home and they forgot to call their plow guy.
Right.
You got to walk through a foot of snow to get in the front door. That's not going to make your buyer happy. So back to the same staging, lighting, making sure your pathways are clear. Your photos may not look as...
Having the heat turned up in the house, maybe.
The heat turned up, that's the worst, right?
Right?
They winterize it for the winter, and you walk in and you're all in your winter coats. So you just have to make sure the house is ready. Exactly. You really don't want to winterize if you're going to be trying to sell it and it's 25 degrees out.
Okay.
Which obviously raises concern about frozen pipes or that kind of thing. But you always want to show it at its best. And that's maybe easier in the spring, but with limited inventory and strong buyers in the winter, you just have to make sure it shows well.
So I guess my last question, if you are a potential seller, you want to sell your house, but I could do it now, but I'm thinking about maybe holding off to the spring or summer. How do you advise people? Like, how do you help them make that decision?
I always say this is probably one of the best times of the year to sell because, as we talked about at the beginning of the segment, in the spring, the inventory is going to increase. Let's say every spring, just for round numbers, you get a 10% inventory increase. Well, you don't miraculously have 10% more buyers running around just because the grass is green, right? Your buyer pool is kind of the same, and now you have a bunch of new inventory. Interest rates typically tend to go up towards the spring months as well. So for the next few months, these record low interest rates probably aren't going to move. So this winter looks great.
So it's all about supply and demand, and the message is avoid the competition and sell if you're ready.
The price are right.
That's interesting.
Thanks.
That's right. Thank you very much, Chad.
Thank
Appreciate it. All right, up next on the Money Pros, we're going to be talking about the rising cost of a college education. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Money Pros. Now I want to talk about the rising cost of a college education, which is a topic I harp on quite a bit on the Money Pros because I have 4 children, and the oldest of which just got done submitting her early action applications to a variety of colleges, and all I can think about is how in the world I'm going to pay for it all. So one of the organizations you'll become very familiar with if you're not already with respect to colleges, organization called the College Board, the folks that bring you none other than the SAT. They also bring you the CSS profile, which is the overly intrusive, in my opinion, financial aid application form that many schools require you to fill out. But they also do a study of what the cost of college education is, and their 2016-2017 numbers just came out, and I've shared these with you in the past, and I want to keep our viewers updated. So let's talk a little bit about that. Unfortunately, the news is not good. 2016-2017 college tuitions hit another record high. So it's just going up and up and up, with really no sign that that's going to stop, although the rate of increases have moderated slightly, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So while the cost of a college education continues to go up and has already hit another record high, we have to keep in mind that most children, parents don't pay the sticker price for a college. They pay the sticker price less whatever financial aid that they're going to receive. And the financial aid is not only from the institution, but it can be federal financial aid. It can also mean things like tax credits and deductions that have value too. Unfortunately, the overall value of that entire package of financial aid has remained flat for 2016 and has actually been flat for a significant period of time. So while we're seeing the cost, the sticker price for college educations rise, the opportunities for aid that come along with those have not increased. So the net price has also expanded for children and their parents. So I'm going to put up a slide, and I want to talk quickly about what the average increases were for 2016-2017 according to the College Board. First one up, a public 4-year in-state institution. So if you're in Rhode Island, this would be URI, Rhode Island College potentially. Average increase for a public 4-year in-state, 2.7%. For a public 4-year out-of-state, so if our Rhode Island student wants to go to UMass or UConn or somewhere else, average increase of 3.4%. And then finally, if you have ambitions of going to a private school, whether it be Brown or Salve Regina or somewhere out of state, average price there is also up 3.4%. So these are significant increases. In fact, they're all higher than what the rate of inflation is. So we expect as consumers that the cost of things we buy are going to go up over the years, but we don't generally expect things to go up at a rate higher than everything else. So the average cost has risen faster than the rate of inflation 33 of the past 35 years. Now, we've talked about in the past on this show some of the reasons why that's happening, and it's actually a very complex, complicated subject, but the reality is the cost of a college education is rising faster than wages and rising faster than other costs are in our life. The average sticker price of an in-state public institution, $25,000, and for a private school, the average tuition is nearly $50,000, and I'm here to tell you that some of the most recognizable name brand schools, their tuitions are in excess of $70,000 at this point for sticker prices. So you're talking about a significant cost. We talk about it in this show all the time, ways to manage that cost, ways to save for it, but I just want to give you a little update. Things are not letting up. It's getting more expensive, and if you haven't started saving, you should start saving now. All right, up next, Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. We're going to be talking about a tax court judge in Minnesota that ran afoul of the IRS. Stay with us. Okay, so I saw this story, and I had to share it with our Money Pros viewers. And I'm calling this the Truth is Stranger Than Fiction segment. So here's basically the headline. Former tax court judge, and I underline the word former, I don't think it should come as a surprise to anybody. Tax court judge Diane Krupa from Minnesota pled guilty to fraudulently omitting almost $1 million from her income tax returns during the time she served as a judge. She, along with her husband, admitted to fraudulently deducting at least $500,000 of personal expenses, which they listed as expenses for her husband's business, and another $450,000 in expenses that were actually reimbursed to them by the clients of this business. So they've pled guilty. There are going to be significant financial fines. There was no word in the article on any kind of jail time. But I think this definitely goes to show that you do not want to mess with the Internal Revenue Service. And while ignorance is no excuse and certainly not a defense for messing up your tax return, a tax court judge cannot claim ignorance of the law. At least the law actually caught up with them. All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks for watching The Money Pros. We'll hope you join us again next time, next Sunday, right here on The Money Pros. We'll see you later, folks.